My father secretly took out $73,000 in loans under my name, ruined my credit, and left me with the debt. Now I must decide whether to file charges. Original post. I, 21, graduated from university with my undergrad in 2024. At the time of graduating I thought that I had around 10,000 of federal student loans. Recently my mom left my emotionally abusive father, leaving just her, me and my sibling by ourselves. I was happy at this decision until I found out that the $10,000 of debt I thought I was in was actually far more than that. I knew that throughout my first year of university he had taken out some private student loans for me. I was told, by my father, that since I was only 18 at the time, the bank we loaned from wouldn't allow me to pull out loans since I didn't have good credit. He told me that he would be able to take out these student loans under my mother's name and that he'd pay them off as soon as I'm done with school. I found out recently that the loans were in fact under my name with my mom just as a cosigner. Also that the loans were far more than was needed to pay for my tuition. She did not know this either. BTW. He had taken out a total of $48,000 in private student loans under my name. I remember signing for these. He did not forge my signature. When I asked exactly what I was signing for or more details about everything, he told me, "Stop asking questions and just trust me." Every time I tried to push for answers I got that response. I trusted him. I trusted that he would not screw me over. I had trusted him to help build my credit when I turned 18. I found out now that he's completely messed up my credit too. My TransUnion score is 669 and my Equifax score is 577. He used my tuition money for rent and bills. I do not know what he used the money he got from my credit cards for. Throughout the past few years, he had convinced us that he was making a lot of money from his job. I now realize that he was likely lying about that and just secretly screwing me over. And my mom too, since he's also messed up her credit. I have 3 closed credit cards that are in debt, I think. One is $6,055 balance, $2,250 credit limit, with $6,055 due. The second is $12,864 reported balance, $1,000 credit limit, with $0 due. Does this second one mean that I don't have to pay off the balance? The third one is $6,228 balance, $6,000 credit limit, with $714 due. From what I have looked up, it seems like I owe a little over $35,000 in credit card debt. I also know that he's messed up my siblings' credit too. I'm not sure by how much. I haven't had the chance to look into that. Also, I think it's important to note that he currently owes 3 different family members over $200,000. I found this out this week too. Flash forward to now. I found out about these loans a few days ago. I now have a total of $58,000 in student loan debt in addition to my credit debt. My first student loan payment is due in less than 3 weeks. I need advice. I don't want to take legal action against him. I don't want him to end up in jail. He is currently helping us by paying for our rent and car even though my mom has left him. My mom doesn't currently have a job, though she is looking, and my job doesn't make nearly enough to provide for ourselves without his help. In August, I will start a higher paying job, and possibly pick up a second job to pay off my debt. So I could ask him to just send me money every month instead of paying for rent and the car. I could use that money to help pay off the debt. As of right now, I am not worried about my federal student loans. The minimum payment is doable and I will receive around $14,000 of tuition reimbursement in March-April, so that will help. Should I consolidate the private loans? Should I refinance? I've briefly considered filing for bankruptcy, since I have no assets, but I know that's probably a bad idea. Is there a way for me to not have to deal with this debt without landing him in a lot of trouble? Relevant comments. Did OOP know what they signed? OOP. It was an electronic signature for the loan where you use the mouse to draw out your signature. He called me over to sign it on his laptop. At the time I still thought that the money would be under my mother's name. I also did not know how much money it would be, Comet or one. I don't want to take legal action against him. Okay, then you're going to have to pay the loans or declare bankruptcy, Comet or two. I don't want to take legal action against him. I don't want him to end up in jail. You need to get past this, because he doesn't care what he does to you, and he isn't only hurting you, he is hurting and taking advantage of a lot of people, and is actively ruining your futures to benefit himself. He is currently helping us by paying for our rent and car even though my mom has left him. He isn't helping you, he is providing just enough to hope you don't take action against him. And the money is money he owes you, not that he is using to support you out of care for you and your family. He is not helping. He is using money he took from you and others to pay for that. You are paying for that help in the form of increasing debt, not him. And if he doesn't face serious repercussions for his actions, he is going to keep doing it and you will never get out of the increasing debt he'll continue to saddle you and everyone else with. At the very least, you need to make sure you and your siblings' credit is locked down now to prevent him from taking out new cards and loans under your names. But you really need to just report him to the police so you can remove that debt. Why are you so worried about ruining his life, when he isn't worried about ruining the lives of you, your siblings and everyone else he has taken advantage of? If anyone ruins his life, it will be him by his own actions. Update, editor's note, remove the top part of the post as it is a rehash of the original post update. After reading all these responses and talking with some close friends of mine, I see that the best thing to do is file against him. I brought up the topic to my mother last night and she, being very religious, said, "No, don't do that. God wouldn't want you to harm another person like this, let alone your own father." She said that she'd rather take on the private student loan debt by refinancing and transferring it to her, but honestly that wouldn't remove the credit card debt and it'd leave her with the debt instead. I don't think that's a good choice. I think that if I file against my dad, my mother will kick me out, so if I file, I will already be prepared to move out. That being said, I currently only have $2,000 saved up from work and that will not be enough to move out on my own. I'd need more money to get a car, place, and overall survive. I just moved to the city I am in less than a year ago, so I don't have many people to rely on here. My boyfriend offered to let me live at his family's house, but I'd still need to be able to travel to and from work and I don't want to overstay my welcome. I also don't have the option to move because I have to work in the state of Florida to qualify for my university's tuition reimbursement. In March, I have over $14,000 of tuition reimbursement coming in. My best bet would be to wait till March and then leave. It breaks my heart to do this because I could be disowned by every person in my family, but I can't let myself live with this debt. Prior to this, I thought I only had $10,000 worth of debt, and with that I could have easily lived a good life and paid it off quickly. I'm still not 100% set on this decision, but I do realize that it is the logical thing to do. I want to speak with my sibling to see how much debt my father put them in and to see if they'd want to file too. I also want to speak with a lawyer or someone more knowledgeable than me about this. Does anyone have any advice based on this update? Update number 2 in response to the comments I've gotten. My mom's religious comments are obviously ridiculous, but I'm mostly looking for help with how to file or what to expect. I have records showing $23,000 of refunds went to a bank account he controlled. I didn't see a dime of that money and I think he used it to pay for a vacation NGL. Relevant comments. Is it possible for OOP to find a new place or rent near their job? OOP. I'm a substitute teacher. I work at different schools around the county, so it wouldn't be possible for me to get a job near work, unfortunately. How did OOP's father get involved in OOP signing the documents with their mother? OOP. All I did was sign. He filled out everything. Now, I understand looking back that I was stupid for signing without asking. But, after some further looking into things, I see that the amount of money I was refunded by my school was an insane amount and not an amount I could have spent by myself in one semester, aka $12,000 extra refunded in a semester where my tuition was only $2,000. He must have used that money himself on non-education related things. Also, the credit cards I did not sign for. I didn't even know that you sign for credit cards. He did that all himself. Commenter 1. It sounds to me like both your mom and your dad are in this together, and that if you don't file against them, they will come out ahead, and you will come out behind. Commenter 2. God didn't want your mom to leave your dad either, but she did. So, she doesn't have a leg to stand on when he's preaching to you. Report him to anyone you can. Also, if you were under 18 years old, you can't be held responsible for any contractors. Now to the next story, story 2. I grew up overshadowed by the golden child. She tried to seduce my husband, we exposed her, and my mother framed me, refusing her faults. Hello, everyone, I need some help and maybe a place to rant. This will be a long one, so please bear with me. I, 33F, have always had a problematic connection with my younger sister, Julia, 30F. Julia is our family's golden child, which has caused me grief since we were little. Growing up, our parents always preferred Julia. She was the beautiful, talented, and all-around perfect person. Meanwhile, I was the older sister who consistently fell short of their expectations. My earliest memories include occasions when I felt invisible next to her. One memory strikes out so vividly. I was about 8 years old and it was my birthday. I'd been looking forward to it for weeks, fantasizing about the cake, the gifts, and the attention. But as soon as Julia entered the room, everyone's attention went to her. She was just 5 at the time, but she had a talent for stealing the show. She began singing a song she had learned in kindergarten, and everyone applauded, completely forgetting that it was my special day. My parents didn't notice the tears welling up in my eyes as I watched them adore her. This was a pattern that continued throughout our childhood. Julia received the greatest clothes, the most attention, and all of the compliments. I recall feeling pleased of myself after receiving a B on a math test. However, when I presented it to my parents, they only glanced at it before asking Julia about her day. She had colored a picture at school, and that was considered more impressive. The hardest aspect was that Julia was well aware of her position within the family. She wasn't a malevolent child, but she knew how to use circumstances to her advantage. If we ever fought, as siblings do, she would scream and run to our parents, who would always support her side. I was always the one that got scolded, regardless of the situation. The dynamics remained rather stable as we grew older. Julia excelled in whatever she did. She was a straight-A student, a star athlete, and eventually a social butterfly with a large network of friends. In contrast, I suffered both intellectually and socially. I was shy, introverted, and had difficulty establishing friends. Our parents frequently compared us, always adversely to me. "Why can't you be more like Julia?" was a constant refrain in our home. High school was really stressful. Julia was a freshman when I was a senior, and she rapidly gained popularity. She joined the cheerleading squad, was chosen class president, and boys wanted to date her. I was the nerdy senior who rarely had any friends and spent the most of his time in the library. She seemed to be the center of my existence. One incident from high school still bothers me. There was a major dance coming up, and I had finally worked up the guts to ask a boy I liked to go with me. To my astonishment and happiness, he replied yes. But a week before the dance, he cancelled, claiming he had invited someone else. Someone else turned out to be Julia. She had no idea I had asked him, but it didn't matter. She got to go to the dance with him whilst I stayed at home, devastated and alone. After high school, I attended a local community college, while Julia received a scholarship to a prominent university. Our parents were understandably pleased of her, but it hurt to see how little they cared about my accomplishments. I worked 2 jobs to pay for my tuition, but Julia's expenses were covered by our parents. They paid her many visits, attended her college functions, and were continuously positive about her progress. Meanwhile, I had to fend for myself, both emotionally and financially. I eventually earned a nursing degree, while Julia went to law school. By then, I had learnt not to seek my parents' approval. I moved out, obtained a job, and attempted to establish a life for myself. But the agony of those early years never left me. Julia and I remained in touch, but our connection was strained. She was always the successful, attractive sister, but I was just myself. Fast forward a few years, I met a beautiful man named Alex and we married. For the first time in my life, I felt truly appreciated and cherished. Alex was aware of my family dynamics and was really helpful. He helped me realize my own worth beyond the shadows cast by my parents and sister. We purchased a home, and I began to feel like I could finally leave the past behind. But Julia returned to my life in an unexpected way. She had completed law school and was working for a respected firm. She became engaged to a man who seemed perfect in every aspect. Our parents were ecstatic and couldn't stop talking about the forthcoming wedding. I tried to be pleased for her, but old feelings of inadequacy and hatred came back. Julia asked me to be her maid of honor. I was taken aback. We weren't friends, and I questioned why she would want me in such an important capacity, but she insisted on rebuilding our connection. I reluctantly consented, believing that this would be an opportunity to repair old hurts. The wedding preparations were a nightmare. Julia was a bridezilla, demanding and domineering. Every choice had to go via her, and she frequently rejected my thoughts and proposals. It was evident that she had not changed much. She still desired to be the center of attention. But I gritted my teeth and went along with it, hoping to support her and even gain some of her favor. Next came the bridal shower. It was a spectacular event hosted by our parents and attended by Julia's numerous friends and colleagues. I felt out of place and uncomfortable, but I kept a brave face. During the event, our mother delivered a speech praising Julia to the skies. She stated how proud they were of her accomplishments and how attractive she appeared. I stood there, feeling invisible yet again. But then something unexpected occurred. Julia seized the microphone and began speaking. She thanked everyone for attending, then turned to face me. Her response was, "I want to take a moment to acknowledge my sister, who has always been there for me. I know I haven't always shown it, but I appreciate everything she's done. She's strong, kind, and an amazing person. I'm lucky to have her as my sister." I was stunned. Julia has never publicly recognized me like this before. Tears welled up in my eyes, and for a little minute, I believed our relationship could alter. Perhaps this was a tipping point. However, the goodwill was short-lived. Julia called me in a panic about a week before her wedding. She had misplaced the family heirloom necklace that our grandmother had given us, and she was scheduled to wear it on her wedding day. She was hysterical, and I dashed over to assist her in finding it. We flipped her place upside down and still couldn't find it. 2 days later, Julia called me again, accusing me of stealing the necklace. She claimed I must have taken it out of jealousy. I was astonished and hurt. All I had done was attempt to help her, and now she was accusing me of stealing. Of course, our parents believed her, as they usually did with Julia. I was devastated. Eventually, Julia discovered the necklace in a drawer she had forgotten about, but the damage had already occurred. She never apologized for accusing me, and neither did our parents. The wedding went on, but I felt like an outsider in my own family. After the wedding catastrophe, Alex and I chose to concentrate on our respective lives and families. Alex, who had always been technologically inclined, began researching ways to make money online. Initially, it was a side venture, but he quickly discovered a great formula and began earning thousands of dollars. Within a year, his web projects were bringing in tens of thousands, and our financial situation had much improved. With our newly acquired fortune, we purchased a stunning mansion in a famous area. Alex surprised me with a Bugatti as a symbol of our success, and we soon had 2 beautiful children. Life was great, or so it appeared. However, my parents remained unconcerned about our accomplishments. Despite Julia's recent marital issues, they paid her periodic visits and were more engaged in her life. Julia had been living on her own since her marriage ended and was struggling with her work. She had been laid off from a top legal firm and was struggling to make ends meet. Her jealousy grew worse when she saw our success. She came over one day, claiming to want to reconnect and spend time with her nieces and nephew. Initially, I believed her. I assumed she was sincerely attempting to restore our shattered relationship. However, it did not take long to learn her genuine objectives. She started dropping up unannounced, often when Alex was home alone. She would dress provocatively and make subtle, flirty comments to him. Alex, being the faithful spouse he is, quickly informed me of her behavior. We were both stunned and outraged by her conduct. Rather than address her immediately, we devised a strategy to reveal her true colors. We installed hidden cameras in the living room and other public locations to catch her in the act. It wasn't long until we obtained the evidence we required. Julia made her move one day while I was supposed to be out running errands. She approached Alex, placed her hand on his arm, and whispered provocative things into his ear. "Come on, Alex," she said. "You deserve someone who truly appreciates you. Someone like me." Alex played along just long enough to keep her talking. "Julia, you need to stop. I love my wife, and this is incredibly inappropriate." But Julia persisted, leaning closer. "She doesn't have to know. It'll be our little secret." That was the moment we'd been waiting for. Alex forcibly pushed her away, saying, "Julia, I'm serious. You need to leave. This is wrong on so many levels." We documented the entire event on camera. With the proof in hand, we decided to take action. First, we convened a family meeting, which included Julia's husband, who had been unaware of her activities. When everyone had gathered, we showed the video. The room was silent as the video aired. Julia's husband's face became red with rage, and my parents were completely astonished. The video concluded with a tense silence before Julia's husband stood up. "Julia, how could you? After everything, you try to seduce your own sister's husband." His voice was full of surprise and hurt. Julia stammered, attempting to come up with an excuse, but there was no disputing what we had witnessed. Our parents looked at her, disappointed and disgusted. "Julia, we trusted you. We always believed you were the better daughter, but this is beyond forgiveness," my mother replied, her voice cracking. My dad shook his head. "You've brought shame to our family. I don't even know who you are anymore." Julia's husband promptly filed for divorce. He left that same day, accompanied by their 2 children. My parents, who had always elevated Julia to a pedestal, were forced to confront the truth of her behavior. They moved away from her, unable to look at her in the same manner again. Julia's world came crashing down. She has lost her husband, her children, and the support of our parents. She tried to reach out to me, but I couldn't bring myself to forgive her that readily. The scars were too fresh, and the treachery was too severe. Alex and I continued to construct our lives together, stronger than ever. Julia's betrayal, however terrible, had eventually brought us together. We knew we could handle anything as long as we had each other. Life went on, but the scars from the past remained. My parents, who had always preferred Julia, struggled to accept her conduct. They visited less frequently, and when they did, it was evident that they were still dealing with their disappointment. They attempted to appear normal, but the strain was evident. Julia, on the other hand, was attempting to gather up the pieces of her broken existence. She had lost her work and was struggling financially. Her attempts to reconnect with her husband had been unsuccessful, and he had filed for full custody of their children. She was alone and desperate. One day, she appeared at our door, looking more ragged and broken than I had ever seen her. She pleaded with me to let her in so she could explain. Despite my better judgment, I agreed. She sat at our kitchen table, tears flowing down her cheeks, admitting everything. "I'm so sorry," she wailed. "I've been jealous of you for so long. I saw how happy you were, how successful, and I couldn't stand it. I thought if I could take Alex away, I'd feel better. But I was wrong. I've lost everything." Her words struck me hard. For so long, I had regarded Julia as the favored one, the one who had everything. I never realized how deep her insecurities went. I felt sympathy and hatred, but mostly I was tired. Tired of the drama, the suffering, and the never-ending cycle of rivalry and animosity. "I don't know what to say, Julia," I said. "You've hurt me in ways I can't even begin to describe. But I can't keep living with this anger. It's poisoning me, and it's poisoning our family." Julia nodded, tears still running down her cheeks. "I understand. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just wanted you to know how sorry I am." We sat quietly for a while, the weight of our common history hanging thick in the air. Julia eventually went, leaving me to my own thoughts. Could I ever really forgive her? Could we ever get past this? In the weeks that followed, I concentrated on my family and my personal recovery. Alex was a rock for me every step of the process. We discussed Julia, the past, and what the future might hold. I slowly began to let go of some of my anger and bitterness. I recognized that holding on to it was not benefiting anyone, least of all myself. Julia continued to struggle, but she started to make changes. She began going to therapy, getting a job, and rebuilding her relationship with her kids. It wasn't easy, and there were failures along the road, but she was making an effort, which was something. My parents remained distant. The golden child had fallen, and they had no idea how to deal with it. They continued to see Julia on occasion, but it was evident that nothing would ever be the same. They came to see us less and less, and when they did, the tension was evident. It seemed as if they didn't know how to interact to me without the usual dynamic of favoritism. One sunny afternoon, as I watched my children play in our lovely garden, I realized something profound. Despite everything, I was content. I had a nice husband, wonderful children, and a life I was pleased with. Julia's acts had been painful, but they had also brought me to a place of strength and resilience. In the end, life continued. The scars of the past would never be completely healed, but they did not have to define the future. Julia and I started to restore our connection gradually and cautiously. It wasn't perfect and never will be, but it was a start. For the time being, I've decided to focus on the now and the future. The past had its purpose, but it no longer kept me captive. Alex and I continued to create a life together full of love, laughter, and the occasional struggle. Our beautiful home exceeded all of our expectations. The mansion was huge, beautiful, and ideal for raising a family. The children enjoyed their new rooms and the wide backyard where they could play. Alex and I were happier than ever, and for a while, it appeared that we had put the turmoil behind. Part 3. An unexpected turn. Life seems to have settled into a peaceful rhythm. Julia and I worked hard on our relationship, and it gradually began to improve. She apologized sincerely, and I noticed a true improvement in her behavior. We began meeting for coffee, discussing our lives, and even planned family outings together. It was a relief to finally feel like I had a sister I could count on. Meanwhile, Alex's career soared. He accepted an early retirement option from his software employer, which came with a large compensation. We were now financially secure beyond our wildest expectations, and Alex was excited to spend more time with the family and work on personal projects. However, the peace we had worked so hard for was quickly broken. My mother, who had always preferred Julia, appeared reluctant to accept the changes in our family dynamic. She couldn't get the suspicion that I had set Julia up with the video evidence. The thought persisted in her head, and she became increasingly aloof and hostile. One morning, while I was preparing breakfast, the cops appeared at our door with a search warrant. They'd discovered other items in our garage that I had never seen before, including pieces from a stolen car that had been reported missing months before. I was stunned as they handcuffed me and hauled me into custody. I kept thinking that it was a terrible mistake. Alex, who was on a business trip, rushed home as soon as he received the news. He quickly engaged one of the top criminal defense attorneys in the country, Rachel Hargrove, a talented but pricey barrister. Rachel assured us that she would get to the bottom of things and clear my name. The court date arrived soon. Rachel worked tirelessly in the days leading up to the trial, going over every detail and questioning everybody who may provide information. During our investigations, we discovered the awful truth. My own mother had planned the entire plot. Apparently, my mother had underworld friends who helped her obtain the stolen car parts. She had planted them in our garage, attempting to tarnish my reputation and, in her warped manner, teach me a lesson for what she saw as my betrayal of Julia. She refused to recognize that her golden child was at fault, instead believing that I was the manipulator. The trial was tough. The prosecution presented their case, convinced that they had sufficient evidence to convict me. But Rachel was prepared. She provided irrefutable evidence that the car parts had been installed in our garage without our knowledge. She also called a witness, one of my mother's accomplices, who claimed that my mother had coordinated the entire operation. It barely took the jury 2 hours to deliberate. They judged me not guilty of all accusations. I was free, but the ordeal had left a lasting scar. My mother, however, was not so fortunate. The judge sentenced her to 5 years in jail for fraud and conspiracy. The judge made it clear that her conduct were both illegal and morally abhorrent. The courtroom became hushed as the verdict was read. My mother's expression was one of shock and rage. She never expected her scheme would fail so spectacularly. As they dragged her away, she gave me a hateful look. It was a sad moment, but I knew justice had been done. Following the trial, our family was left to pick up the pieces. Julia was horrified by our mother's behavior and suffered from emotions of guilt and humiliation. She relied on me for support, and for the first time, I felt like the elder sister, the protector. Alex and I took some time to recover from our tragedy. We spent more time with our children, making positive memories and ensuring they felt safe and loved. Our bond grew deeper, and we recognized that no matter what obstacles we faced, we'd always have each other. Julia, determined to atone for our mother's sins, worked tirelessly to reconstruct her life. She acquired a new job and began dating again. She stayed close to us, enjoying the family support she had previously taken for granted. My father struggled to accept my mother's infidelity. He had always been more passive, matching her powerful demeanor. But this occurrence shocked him to the core. He paid her a visit in prison, but their connection remained difficult and distant. Life ultimately discovered a new normal. Our family gatherings were tiny, but they were full of true love and connection. We honestly discussed the past, our faults, and the lessons we'd learned. It wasn't flawless, but it was authentic, which was enough. Through it all, Alex was my rock. His constant encouragement and affection kept me going, even on the worst days. His early retirement allowed Dad to spend more time with us, and he launched a new business that matched his technical knowledge with his desire to serve others. We shifted our focus to the future, instilling new traditions and ensuring our children grew up in a loving and supportive atmosphere. The past would continue to be a part of our tale, but it no longer defined us. 5 years had gone since the traumatic circumstances that led to my mother's imprisonment. Throughout those years, our lives gradually returned to a state of normalcy. Alex and I continued to prosper, our children grew up happy and loved, and Julia became a vital part of our family, having entirely repaired our previously shattered connection. Despite the anguish of the past, we were able to construct a tranquil and pleasant existence. Our family gatherings, while smaller, were filled with laughter and genuine connection. We frequently reminisced on the past, appreciating the lessons learned and the strength we found in one another. However, the serenity we had established was shattered once more when my mother was freed from prison. She had served her sentence, but her bitterness and animosity had not subsided. She was a different woman now, elderly and virtually blind, but her hatred for me had grown even deeper. Unbeknownst to us, my mother was scheming her retribution. She believed I had destroyed her life and wanted to hold me accountable. One fateful day, she took a shotgun from a nearby farm and started out to get me. Her objective was to catch me off surprise and take my life. I had no notion how dangerous the situation was. It was a bright afternoon, and I had taken the kids to the park. Alex was out running errands, while Julia was at work. I was sitting on a bench, watching my children play, when I suddenly felt a searing pain. I turned to see my mother standing a few feet away, her shotgun pointed directly at me. Her expression was a mix of wrath and determination. She screamed something incoherent and fired several bullets in rapid succession. Despite her fading eyesight and weak hands, 2 rounds reached their target. One impacted me in the buttocks, while the other damaged my right leg. The pain was intense, and I collapsed to the floor, unable to move. Bystanders phoned the police after they heard gunfire. When my mother saw the commotion and realized her plan had failed, she attempted to run but was swiftly captured by authorities. She was detained and eventually charged with attempted murder, which resulted in a 10-year prison sentence. I was brought to the hospital and had surgery to remove the bullets and fix the damage. The doctors told Alex and Julia that I would recover completely, but the physical and emotional scars would take a long time to heal. Throughout my 3-week hospital stay, Alex never left my side. He was my rock, offering constant support and strength. Julia came every day, bringing me my favorite delicacies and lifting my spirits with her stories and laughs. Their devotion and dedication were the pillars that helped me get through the hardest times. During those long, peaceful hours in the hospital, I had plenty of time to think about all that had transpired. My mother's actions left me feeling shocked and betrayed, which was significant. I couldn't comprehend how she let her anger for me consume her to the point that she attempted to kill me. Despite the anguish and bewilderment, there was a strong sense of appreciation. I was alive, and I had a loving family who supported me through thick and thin. Writing this piece is my way of absorbing what has transpired. It's a chance for me to express my gratitude to everyone who has helped me along the path, who has offered encouraging words when I needed them the most. Your support has meant everything to me. The atmosphere in the courtroom was tight during my mother's trial. The prosecution provided information about her crime, and the evidence against her was overwhelming. My mother sat there, a shell of her former self, but the rage and bitterness in her eyes were clear. She displayed no sorrow, only icy determination, which exacerbated the already awful situation. The jury did not take long to deliberate. Given the clear evidence of her deliberate actions, they convicted her of attempted murder. The judge sentenced her to life in prison, highlighting the gravity of her conduct and the breach of trust in our family. As she was carried away, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. This was my mother, the woman who once looked after me, now damned by her own hatred and actions. Life after the trial was a lengthy process of recovery. The physical wounds began to heal, but the emotional scars were deeper. Alex was great throughout it all, his constant support and love providing me the strength I required. He balanced his work and caring for the children, ensuring that they understood what had happened in a way that preserved their innocence. Julia was similarly amazing. Despite her own troubled connection with our mother, she supported me and offered comfort and understanding. She had really changed, and our friendship was stronger than ever. We relied on one another, finding solace in our common experiences and hope for a brighter future. During my recovery, Alex and I had many long chats about our lives and our goals for the future. We choose to focus on providing a stable, loving atmosphere for our children, making them feel safe and valued. Our house became a haven for laughter, love, and the warmth of family. The community support was overwhelming. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers sent warm words and gestures. It reminded me of people's goodness and helped me restore my trust in humanity. I received numerous comments from people who had followed our tale, expressing their encouragement and sharing their own stories of overcoming adversity. 3 weeks after the incident, I felt strong enough to compose this post. It's a chance for me to express my gratitude to everyone who has helped me along the path, who has offered encouraging words when I needed them the most. Your support has meant everything to me. Most of all, I'd like to thank my husband, Alex, and my sister Julia. Alex, you've been my rock, my strength, and my greatest love. Your constant support and love have helped me get through the toughest moments. Julia, you've taught me what true forgiveness and redemption look like. Our bond has never been stronger, and I am grateful every day for the sister you have become. Life is unexpected, and the future is constantly unknown. But with the love and support of those that matter most, I'm confident I can tackle whatever comes my way. Thank you for taking part in my adventure. As I look ahead, I am filled with hope. My mother's acts, however painful, did not break me. They have helped me become stronger and more resilient. I am resolved to live a life filled with love, kindness, and compassion, and to instill in my children the value of forgiveness and family. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.